Something explosive has been quietly unfolding behind the glossy California smiles of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And according to investigators watching this story closely, the plan is far bigger than anyone imagined. It is not just about media deals, Netflix shows, or lifestyle brands. The allegation shaking royal watchers right now is that Harry and Meghan may be attempting something unprecedented, building an entirely new form of royalty on American soil. And the moment this idea began circulating publicly, the reaction across the United States was immediate, loud, and furious, because millions of Americans are asking one blunt question: who exactly asked for an American royal family?
I thought it was manipulation. I thought that it showed, firstly, Harry absolutely desperate.
Meghan Markle put out more and more content connected to her children.
Prince William doubles down. According to multiple sources, it's now a matter of when, not if, he strips Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their royal titles.
A very aggressive PR for the Sussexes. Got way beyond herself because she really doesn't understand the British royal family or Britain, but understands how to project her clients.
Breaking right now, the British royal family mired in one of its biggest crises in history.
Did Meghan Markle use a surrogate? That's been something posited literally for well over 3 years when it comes to her firstborn son Archie and even her daughter Lilibet. And many people even wonder, are their children even real?
The royal family would not be coming to Harry's rescue. They would not be funding a divorce to any extent. And they, at this point, wouldn't really care what Meghan tried to say or do, because Meghan has so discredited herself as a liar, a cheat, and a phony.
So he is at a loss. And that brings us obviously to the Angola thing, which is really a stunt. It's a pathetic stunt. You've got to look at the way that Harry has actually been badly advised, because after he lost that case in London against the British government to get armed protection.
Tom Bower, the legendary royal author, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And this comes, by the way,
William is planning to act very decisively when he becomes king to take away the titles, the HRHs, once and for all from all non-working royals, which will have the silver lining for him of removing them from Harry and Meghan.
You know, he wanted his privacy. The problem you've got here in a relationship with Meghan and Harry is this is a boy that, you know, was pretty much traumatized by media presence when he was little. He didn't really want any of this publicity. He was always attacking photographers. She's someone, ever since she was on the red carpet, who's craved publicity. So this is a relationship.
The outrage did not appear overnight. It has been building slowly for years, fueled by a trail of controversial decisions, unusual strategies, and a pattern that critics now claim looks less like coincidence and more like a carefully designed long-term strategy. What started as a dramatic royal exit in 2020, the moment Harry and Meghan walked away from royal duties and relocated to California, has now evolved into something that some analysts believe could reshape how monarchy intersects with American celebrity culture. At first, many people assumed the couple simply wanted privacy. That was the story presented publicly. Two parents seeking a peaceful life away from royal pressure, raising their children quietly under the California sun. But the deeper investigators looked, the more the narrative began to crack, because the same couple that insisted they wanted privacy were simultaneously building an enormous public brand centered around their royal identity. And that contradiction is where the controversy begins. According to royal investigative author Tom Bower, the real strategy may have been hiding in plain sight all along. Instead of abandoning royal influence, Harry and Meghan may have been repositioning it, transforming royal status into something entirely new, a hybrid of monarchy, celebrity, and American media power. And the most startling part of the theory centers on two children most of the world has barely seen: Archie and Lilibet. Two young children living thousands of miles away from Buckingham Palace, yet holding the titles of Prince and Princess, titles that were officially granted during King Charles's reign, titles that critics argue carry centuries of British tradition rooted in the monarchy itself. But here is the twist that has people talking. Those children are not being raised inside the royal institution. They are being raised in Montecito, California, in a $15 million mansion surrounded by Hollywood celebrities, Silicon Valley elites, and media media executives. And according to investigators studying the Sussex strategy, something else happened quietly that raised eyebrows among royal watchers. Internet domains were registered for both children, personal websites reserved in their names, for children still in primary school. Now, registering a domain name for your child might sound harmless at first. Plenty of parents do it to secure a name online, but critics argue that in this case, the context changes everything, because these are not ordinary children. They are titled Prince and Princess, children who could one day become public figures connected to both American media and the British royal legacy. And that is where critics claim the long game strategy begins to emerge. If those children grow up in America, raised within Hollywood culture while still carrying royal titles, what exactly does that create? Some analysts have begun using a phrase that is now spreading through royal commentary circles: American royalty. The idea alone has been enough to ignite intense backlash online. Across comment sections, social media posts, and political discussions, Americans have reacted with a mixture of disbelief and anger. Many see the concept as completely incompatible with the country's founding principles. After all, the United States fought a revolution to break free from monarchy. The idea of a new royal image forming in California, even symbolically, strikes many people as absurd. But the controversy does not stop with titles, because according to sources familiar with Meghan's personal routines, she has reportedly been writing nightly diary entries addressed to her children, emails documenting their lives, their experiences, their upbringing. On the surface, that sounds like a loving mother creating memories for her kids, but critics believe the practice may also serve another purpose: an archive, a record, a narrative written from one perspective, material that could eventually form the basis of books, documentaries, interviews, or future storytelling projects. And when investigators step back and look at the entire picture, the media deals, the branding strategies, the domain registrations, the curated public appearances, some believe the structure begins to look less like random decisions and more like the foundation of something carefully built, something designed to grow over decades, something that could one day position Archie and Lilibet as a unique bridge between two worlds, the British monarchy and American celebrity culture. But not everyone believes the strategy will succeed, because according to Tom Bauer, the Sussex brand may already be facing serious cracks beneath the surface. And one of the biggest problems, he claims, is financial backing. Several recent business launches connected to Meghan's lifestyle ventures have struggled to secure large investors. Products have appeared briefly, sold out quickly, then vanished without clear supply chains behind them. To critics, it looks less like a stable business and more like an experiment, a proof of concept trying to attract major funding. Meanwhile, Harry himself appears increasingly trapped between two realities. In Britain, his relationship with the royal family remains severely damaged. The fallout from interviews, memoir revelations, and televised accusations has created wounds that insiders say may never fully heal. And looming over all of this is the future moment when Prince William eventually becomes king. Because once that happens, the power dynamics inside the monarchy will change dramatically. William will control the direction of the royal institution. William will decide how the family responds to ongoing controversies. And according to some royal analysts, William has shown little interest in forgiving the past, which means Harry may find himself permanently locked out of the royal system he once belonged to. That possibility has triggered another wave of speculation. If reconciliation with the monarchy becomes impossible, then building a separate royal identity in America might not just be ambition. It might be survival. But when this possibility was discussed publicly, the reaction from Americans became even louder. And the message repeated across thousands of comments was brutally simple: we didn't sign up for this. Because for many Americans, the concept of princes and princesses operating as public figures inside the United States feels fundamentally wrong. This is a country built on rejecting aristocracy, rejecting hereditary power, rejecting the idea that status should be inherited rather than earned. So the moment people began imagining a California-based royal image forming around Harry and Meghan's children, the backlash exploded. And that backlash is only the beginning. Because once investigators started digging deeper into the Sussex strategy, they uncovered even more controversial questions surrounding the children themselves, the royal titles they carry, and the larger battle that may be forming between two branches of the same family, one in Windsor and one in Montecito. And what those questions reveal next could make this entire story even more explosive. The moment those two royal titles, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, became official, a quiet shockwave moved through royal watchers on both sides of the Atlantic, because suddenly the theory many critics had whispered about for years began to look a lot more real. 2 children living in California, growing up far away from the traditions, ceremonies, and expectations of the British monarchy, yet still carrying the very titles that define that monarchy. And that contradiction is exactly what has pushed the conversation into explosive territory. For centuries, royal titles were not just symbolic decorations. They represented service to the crown, proximity to the royal institution, and a public role tied directly to Britain itself. But Archie and Lilibet are growing up thousands of miles away from that system. They are being raised among palm trees and Hollywood neighbors rather than palace courtyards and royal tutors. To many critics, that raises a simple question that refuses to disappear. Prince and princess of what exactly? Because if the children are not being raised within the monarchy, if they are not performing royal duties, if their lives are centered in the United States rather than the United Kingdom, then what do those titles actually represent? Tom Bauer has argued that this question sits at the center of the entire controversy. In his view, the titles are not simply family tradition being preserved, they are tools that can be used to shape a long-term narrative about identity, influence, and global celebrity. In other words, the titles themselves may be the brand, and that brand, critics say, has been slowly constructed piece by piece over the past several years. First came the royal exit, the dramatic step away from official duties that shocked the world. Then came the relocation to California, a place where media power and celebrity influence operate on a completely different scale. Then came the massive media agreements, Netflix productions, podcasts, interviews, projects that turned private family conflict into public storytelling. Each step created headlines. Each step expanded the Sussex narrative. And now, some analysts believe the next chapter of that narrative involves the children themselves. Because as Archie and Lilibet grow older, their identities will inevitably become public topics. The curiosity alone is enormous. Millions of people who have barely seen the children's faces are already fascinated by the idea of royal offspring growing up in California. What will they sound like? Will they identify as American? Will they embrace their royal titles? Or will they reject them? Every possibility opens the door to an entirely new media cycle. And that is exactly why some observers believe Meghan's reported habit of writing nightly diary entries to her children has attracted so much attention. Those messages, emails sent daily, chronicling their lives from her perspective, have been described by some commentators as something far more structured than simple family journaling. They look like documentation, a timeline, a personal archive that could one day form the foundation of a larger story. Imagine 2 young adults years from now telling the world about what it was like growing up as American-raised royalty. Imagine interviews, documentaries, books, and public appearances built around that unique identity. For supporters of Harry and Meghan, that possibility represents something positive, a modern evolution of monarchy that reflects a more global world. But for critics, it looks like the construction of a rival royal narrative entirely outside the control of Buckingham Palace. And that is where the tension between the Sussexes and the royal family becomes even more complicated. Because inside the British monarchy, the future is already being carefully prepared. Prince William is widely understood to be thinking about the long-term survival of the institution. Every decision, every public appearance, every reform discussion inside the palace now revolves around protecting the monarchy's credibility for future generations. And those future generations are represented by William's own children. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, Prince Louis, 3 children growing up inside the heart of the royal institution. 3 children whose roles are already defined by centuries of tradition, which means that somewhere in the future, 2 different groups of royal cousins may end up living radically different lives. On one side, the heirs inside Windsor. On the other, the California cousins with royal titles but American lives. And when commentators begin imagining that future scenario, the comparisons become impossible to ignore. Some royal analysts have even predicted a strange cultural rivalry that could unfold over time. Britain's royal family versus an American-based royal narrative powered by media exposure. Whether that rivalry ever becomes real remains uncertain, but the mere possibility has already made many royal observers uneasy, because if Harry and Meghan continue building their public identity around royal connections while living outside the monarchy, the palace faces a dilemma it has never encountered before. How do you control a narrative when the storytellers no longer live inside the system? That question becomes even more sensitive when another issue enters the conversation, one that has circulated through royal discussion forums and commentary communities for years: the surrogacy speculation. This topic remains extremely controversial and delicate because it involves children, and no official evidence has ever confirmed those rumors. But the reason the subject continues to appear in discussions is tied directly to the larger question of royal legitimacy. In traditional royal rules, the line of succession historically depended on children being born of the body, meaning biologically carried by the mother within the royal marriage. If those historical rules were ever challenged or reinterpreted, the implications could be significant. But the story is far from finished. Because if the past few years have proven anything, it is that the saga surrounding Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and the future of their family has a habit of taking unexpected turns, and every new revelation seems to raise even more questions than the last. And according to the investigators watching closely, the next chapter of this story may be the most explosive yet.